Swords. Whether you've been painting for 5 minutes or 5 decades, you're gonna paint a lot of them. And whilst a plain metallic silver sword is absolutely fine, no shade at all, you're probably gonna get bored of that quite quickly. So for today's video, I'm gonna bring you 10 lovely new sword ideas. And as a special bonus, all of them will be executable within 10 minutes. So come on, roll that intro. Let's do this thing. Now look, even if you don't use a single recipe featured in this video today, my hope, for making it at least, is that you'll come away from it with a bit of an appreciation, maybe some ideas for some things that can be done beyond the humble silver sword. Every single one of these is either an existing recipe that I already use on the regular, or is something that I actually came up with just on the spot, in the moment, for this video. So really, there's no excuse to have a go at a few different things and mix it up a bit on your swords. So, without further ado, grab your tools, let's have a crack at it. Okay, starting out here with a bit of a classic. This green energy blade is obviously great for Necrons, but I'm pretty sure you could find lots of other uses for it too. It starts life with a quartered wet blend going in opposite directions on each side of the blade. Obviously, if you don't have a diamond-shaped blade like this, you could happily do a single blend. Once that's established, we'll reinforce it with a bit of glazing, just a couple of passes to clean it up a bit. Then we'll frame the edges and the spine of the blade in our green colour, just using the side of the brush to make it nice and easy. Next is a few quick stages of lighter greens to work up those transitions a bit. I just mix a bit of yellow into my main green. You might prefer an out of the bottle colour, but it's all going to work the same. We're just layering this up. Then at the lighter end of our greens, we're going to start putting some crackly energy in, heading from the light section down toward the dark section. Before finishing off with some final bright spots to really bump the contrast, and then some sparkle added with a near pure white. And that's that. Simple green energy blade. No stress, no fuss, and we're out of the gate. Next up is this shiny but battle-worn, non-metallic-y, metal-y kind of thing. It's not super refined because, well, 10 minutes, but I think this is a good basis for a really nice idea at least. To start out, we're going to glaze white all over the blade, keeping it as even as possible. This is called normalizing, and it prepares the blade to receive the subsequent techniques. Once that's totally dry, we're going to use super thin white to start sketching in a highlight pattern. Keep it interesting, but by all means, be as random as you like here. Then I'm going to let that white just thicken up ever so slightly, and I'm going to start pushing those highlight spots, reinforcing what we did previously to create the shiny bits. When I'm eventually happy with that, I'll use a dark blue, almost black, just to knock back the transitions a little bit and soften them off. We want worn here, but we don't want things to be overly choppy. Then it's full thickness out of the bottle white to frame up the blade with a nice bright highlight. Before we then glaze a dark blue on the side that's facing up, a brown on the side that's facing down, and then we just retouch a few quick highlights here and there, and we're done. A worn, shiny steel kind of blade. Pretty cool. Okay, I designed this next one to be more for lightsabers really, but it works on swords too, as you can see here. The first step is just to paint out the whole blade in the colour you want the lightsaber to be. That's easy peasy. Now we'll use a quick bit of glazing to push some brightness toward the centre of the blade. We're aiming for kind of a fuzzy line of highlight down the middle. Once you've built that up, if you're doing it on a normal blade, then I'll add some edge highlights before proceeding. But if you're painting a lightsaber, well, they're cylinders. They don't really have edges. You're welcome to try. Next, we're going to mix a highlight color, but we don't want it to really desaturate. So in my case for red, I'm going to use sunny skin tone rather than white, just to keep a bit of warmth into the highlight. However, once that's mixed, we just need to reinforce a bit of the central highlight with it to get that nice burny glow toward the bottom of the blade. And that's it. Easy lightsabers. I'm sure all you Shatterpoint fans will be happy to see this. Right, this one, I call it the brand blade or the TMS special because, well, It's in the colours of our branding here at TMS, and it also uses a lot of techniques I really enjoy. Check it out. To start off, we'll build a quartered blend up on the blade using a pinky purple and a greeny teal. See? Brand colours. Once you have that established, it's going to look something like this. Then it's just a case of highlighting the green edges in a pale pink and the purple edges in a pale teal, with a bit of both for the spine of the blade. Add in a bit of cross-hatching, because, well, it's one of my favourite techniques. Sparkle up the edges with some near white, and voila, that's the TMS special. And speaking of special, if you want to do something that will make us feel really special, do remember to give this video a thumbs up. Maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more like it. And if you want to be really special, we do also have a Patreon and a Ko-fi. Signing up, you can get access to our videos early, you can get access to our 10 quick image tutorial system, and an invite to our lovely Discord, which is really cool. Prices start from £1 a month, and at the moment over on Patreon specifically, there is a free 7-day trial running, so you can check it out before you buy. Right, next up, our spicy Hellfire blade, which you might have seen previously if you follow me on Instagram. Here's how it's done. Step 1 is to get the blade painted out in a nice bright colour. I find sunny skin tone covers really well even when you paint really thinly with it, so I use that. Once you get that to full coverage, 2.5–3 coats, we'll tint the whole blade with some very thin down yellow, trying to keep things as smooth as possible. Then working through yellow to orange and eventually an orangey red, we'll start glazing a transition into the blade, with the aim for the tip to be the reddest part. You have to work back and forth a little bit with this, but it is very easy, so I'm not going to show the whole thing. Once you have the blade looking something roughly like this, a few dotty dashy bits of red just help create a bit of motion in this molten monstrosity, as well as a dribble of thin white into some of the recesses to show that that's where the heat is coming from. Then we move to pure black to frame the blade and add in all those chippy, liney little bits that make this style look so cool. And that's the spiciest slicer done. Really actually quite straightforward, but a very cool looking blade. And whilst the last one might have been really hot, this Nebula Space Blade is decidedly cooler and surprisingly easy. We're going to start out by stippling some purple into random spots on the blade to create some nebula zones. Once they're built up, we'll stipple some blue inside those same shapes to create a bit of a diffuse transition. Then I'll mix the blue and purple together to make an indigo and add a touch of white to that. That's going to really start brightening up those spots now, before painstakingly adding in stars as either dots or very tiny little crosses. Please don't be like me here. Make sure that your white is really thin and flowing properly off your brush before you start trying to make dots with it. I had to have so many goes here. But eventually, after learning my lesson and sorting that out, it is just a quick bright highlight to the edges before we can call our Space Blade done. Not entirely sure who this is best suited to in terms of armies that exist out there in the IPs. Maybe Eldar? Something you'd never catch a Space Elf with though is this super easy rusted blade. But don't let that stop you from giving it a go. To start out with, we'll sponge brown all over the entire blade, before amping up the brightness with a sponging of orange to follow. Once both of those are dry, we'll dot in some brighter orange to bring out some nice spots of flaky rust, before knocking back a little of that brightness with a glaze of dark brown. Once all of that is where we want it, we'll start showing some chips, by first using black to mark out where they'll live, and then going over those same spots with some light grey to bring them out. Oh, and don't forget a few scratches here and there. Then it's just one more dark brown glaze to knock things back a little, before we proudly proclaim our rust blade done and dusted. This one is easily the easiest here, but it is also the one that I maybe think needs a little bit more work. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Right, at this point, I just wanted to do something I'd never seen before, so I'm kind of messing around now. I came up with this wooden mossy blade, which I'm calling the Nature Boy, but I should maybe be calling it the Bobby Duke. It starts out somewhat predictably with an all-over flat coat of brown, no surprises. But things are going to quickly get fun because we're going to wet blend some black into the bottom end of the blade, and a nice creamy colour at the top end of the blade. Looks more tree-like already. With that same creamy tanny colour, I'll start drawing on some grain now, keeping things interesting with some knots. Before a dark brown glaze on the side of the blade that faces down to create some shadow, then it's back to the creamy tone for some highlights, a little dribble of runny green to make a mossy look near the bottom, and we're done. Alan Titchmarsh would be proud if he painted minis. Realistically, he probably wouldn't care. This next blade is kind of an icy number. Maybe something for Space Wolves, maybe something for, well, anything else really. Icy blades are cool. It starts off with an all-over coat of a nice dark blue, but rather than solid strokes, we're applying thin, quick, dashy lines that all run in the same direction. We'll then keep building up this same theme, getting lighter and lighter and changing direction each time, till we arrive at a really bright icy blue and are just touching the outer edges. Once that's established, we'll then run over a dark blue glaze. This will create massive depth in the blade, creating the illusion of layers of built up ice. Then it's just some super bright highlights in a slightly broken up edge pattern, and our frosty blade is chilling like a villain. I definitely enjoy how graphical and comic-y this one reads. It's a nice bold blade that's still going to look good from 5 feet away. Our final blade is probably the most ambitious of the lot. It's not hard per se, it's just a lot of steps to fit into 10 minutes. So apologies if this comes off as but I think it's worth including, even if you just use it as a base to do a better version from. So let's start out our chrome blade by painting a tiny landscape on the bottom half. Just some hills or mountains or whatever in brown. Keep it simple, but not so simple that you don't pretty much fill the space and that you neglect things like highlights. Once the bottom half is starting to come together, take a quick break by glazing some blue onto the top half of the blade. Start with something fairly dark because we will be working up. From there though, it should be pretty easy to just go through a mid-tone blue into a lighter kind of sky blue to create a sky transition toward the horizon, which in the case of this example is the spine of the blade. Very convenient. Also, don't be afraid to make small adjustments to the land side like I did here once you've seen the sky side. Context matters, and you might want to shuffle things around to get more contrast once you've got them both next to each other. After that, we're into our old friend Pure White again to highlight the edges of the spine, as well as a few little shine lines here and there that are definitely optional and I can't make my mind up whether I like or not. And that is a very simplified version of a chrome blade that you can at least complete in under 10 minutes. So what do you think about that, folks? Hopefully that's a nice little short list of easy digestible blade ideas that you can use to go off and get creative with your own choppers. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching the whole thing. You're one of the cool people. We all hang out here at the end. We just chat, you know, it's a little club. It's quite nice. Come and have a seat if you like. This is probably about it for me for this one. I don't think there's any need to ramble on, so thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and bye for now, folks.